The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John.
Glory to you.
In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things came to be. Not one thing had its being, but through him. All that came to be had life in him, and that life was the light of men. A light that shines in the dark, a light that darkness could not overpower. A man came, sent by God. His name was John. He came as a witness to speak for the light, so that everyone might have believed through him. He was not the light, only a witness to speak for the light. The Word was a true light that enlightens all men, and he was coming into the world. He was in the world that had its being through him. He came to be his own domain, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who did accept him, he gave power to become children of God. To all who believe in the name of him, who was born not out of human stock, or urge of the flesh, or will of man, but of God himself. The Word was made flesh. He lived among us, and we saw his glory. The glory that is his as the only Son of the Father. Full of grace and truth, God appears as his witness. He proclaims, "This is the one of whom I said, he who comes after me ranks before me, because he existed before me." Indeed, from his fullness we have, all of us, received, yes, grace in return for grace. Since through the law was given through Moses, grace and truth have come through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is only the Son, who is nearest to the Father's heart, who has made him known. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
An English professor was very proud that his son, his small son, was chosen as one of the kings, one of the wise men, for a pageant organized by his school about the nativity. So 3 boys are chosen for the kings. One, of course, will bring gold, the other one myrrh, and his son was supposed to bring frankincense. But his son was very nervous, kept saying over and over again, practicing frankincense, frankincense. He was afraid that he would not be able to pronounce it, frankincense, frankincense. So his father said, "Don't worry, it will be okay." So on the day in school, the hall was dark. Parents and friends were all in the hall. The pageant was on the stage. Only light was on the stage. So one of the boys, the first king, came forward and said, to the baby Jesus, of course, "I bring you gold." The second boy came forward and says, "I bring you myrrh." And his son came forward, and there was silence. Maybe for 15 seconds, And then the boy said, "Frank sent this." He could not pronounce frankincense. He said, "Frank sent this." Children do not lose their imagination. We as adults, sometimes we lose that imagination. Speaking of the Christmas feast, the ancients, when I say ancients, I mean in the early centuries, they captivated and solemnized the feast of Christmas. Ancients drew an extreme, like for example, cattle in stables fell to their knees at midnight. Birds sing all night long. Trees and plants, especially those along the river Jordan, bow in reverence toward Bethlehem. It was once believed that at midnight, the gates of paradise are open, and anyone who died at that hour would enter heaven at once. Children born on this night are especially blessed. And there are many other stories like this. This is from the ancient times. Well, we moderns have spun a different version of the Feast of Christmas. We have commercialized this feast and we have sanitized it. When I say sanitized, I don't mean free from sin. I mean made it clean. Perfectly clean, hygienic. Take, for example, Christmas cards, which seldom used today, but people do send me. The image of the Nativity, a scene which is always presented as a tableau of choir angels, a nice cute baby in a manger, Mary and Joseph in clean clothes, humble, sweet shepherds, well scrubbed, properly posed animals, and richly dressed wise men with fabulous gifts. But this is not the accurate portrayal of the real Christmas. To begin with, take the shepherds. They were the dregs of the earth, outcasts. Then there were the magi, or the wise men. Certainly wise men of a sort, but they're not Jews. They're from the East. Not the people of the prophecies of the Old Testament proclaiming the coming Messiah. In a word, they were outsiders. Mary and Joseph were not physical models of perfection. They were poor Jewish peasants, chosen by God. They lived in the countryside, who wore travel-worn, dusty clothes. They traveled in the desert. The stable animals were not sanitized, and people had to walk around their droppings. Bethlehem was not modern Singapore, but a scruffy village of no account. And what about the manger? We're not talking about a nice crib from a departmental store, but a feeding station for animals. In dressing up the nativity to look like it was organized and designed by Disneyland, we missed the whole point of the real Christmas. Look at our crib out there. Jesus is born in the rubble. Closer to the real Christmas. But today it represents the destruction of human life in the world that we're living in today, to show that Jesus is one with them, especially the children. Some years ago, when I say some years ago, there were some years ago, two reporters from the Sunday Times, dressed up as poor travelers, a couple. And the lady put a pillow, I think, to show that she was pregnant. No hotel along Orchard Road entertained them. Obviously, it's Christmas Eve. They all dressed up, rightly so, attending parties and dinners, good. But no one attended to them. Why? They were dregs. Of course, they wrote an article in the Sunday Times the following day. The hotels apologized, some of them at least. But what am I trying to get at this point? The point is that God came to live among us. Human existence, with all of its limitations and flaws. God stepped out of God's comfort zone to live among us. Have we ever stepped up in our comfort zone to be aware of the less fortunate, the poor and sick in our society? God did it. Not some paid actor in a play, but among shepherds, outcasts, outsiders like the Magi. And it is no accident that this God who desired to be with us, with all our flaws, was born in a feeding station. Because that is why God came into our lives. To nourish our brokenness, to feed our hungry souls. Christmas truly shows us love among the ruins of our lives. And when this child grew up, nothing changed. Jesus was criticized for mixing with bad company. namely the outcasts and sinners of his day. Now, friends, the big question is this: why don't we pay more attention to all this? Why do we allow ourselves to fall for the commercial sentimentality of the season? Don't get me wrong, I'm going to enjoy myself. Rightly so. It's a joyous occasion. Go shopping, it's good. Feast with friends and drink and be merry. Excellent, good. That's what we should do for Christmas. It's a joy. But what I'm trying to get at is that we tend to forget the true meaning of Christmas. Not Xmas, put the Christ before Mass. Christmas. Christ is the center. The truth is this: God lives all year round among us. But often we don't practice and deny it. So remember, my friends, that Christmas is not a tableau in a shop window or departmental store. Christmas is a celebration of the Word, as our Gospel tells us, made flesh and dwell among us. It's a celebration of love among the ruins of our lives. Since Jesus had no room at the inn, perhaps let's make some room for him in our hearts. Not only for Christmas, but for the rest of our Christian lives, to treat others as we would like to be treated.